Hi, everyone. Welcome to Hockey Habit. Today, we'll be talking about what your team should look like with the first overall selection in the 2021 NHL Fantasy Draft. These are my predictions slash suggestions on what your teams should be looking like and the strategy you should be taking when drafting your teams. First, let's talk about who you should pick with the first overall pick. I feel like it's a no brainer this year. It's going to be Connor McDavid. Unfortunately, Nikita Kucherov got injured, and he didn't get injured, but he needed surgery, so he will be missing the 2021 NHL season. So because of that, it's a no-brainer this year. The number one overall pick is going to be Connor McDavid. So let's get into it. First, we're going to look at the eight-man team. We'll be talking about three teams today: an eight-man league, a 10-man league, and a 12-man league. So first here in the eight-man, it's Connor McDavid with the first pick, no surprise. And then with my second and third pick, I took Mitch Marner and Brad Marchand. Now in an eight-man league, your top three picks are going to be your cornerstones. In a 10 and a 12-man league, it'll be just the first and the second. But for this case, we need the top three, and I took one in each position to round out, make sure I have a solid player in each position. So like that, I could win week in and week out without any issues. Mitch Marner is going to be a great player whether he plays with Matthews or Tavares. He's going to score a lot of. He's going to be one of the best players on Toronto whether he plays with Matthews or Tavares. So there's no issue there. Brad Marchand, his injury has there's no need for concern. He's going to be either good to start the season or maybe miss a week. It doesn't matter. But Brad Marchand is going to be one of the best goal scorers in the NHL this season once again. And those were my top three picks. Now I went for Roman Josi and Brady Tkachuk. I figured I needed to start beefing up my defensemen and not fix, but bolster the weaker of the three forward positions, and I ended up taking Brady Tkachuk. Roman Josi is going to be a Norris candidate defenseman this year, and Brady Tkachuk is going to be the best player on Ottawa, assuming somebody like Tim Stutzla doesn't end up going off this year and taking over the number one spot. Brady Tkachuk should be the best player offensively for the Ottawa Senators. My next two picks were Cale Makar and Carey Price. Cale Makar, one of the best offensive defensemen in the league. He's playing with McKinnon. There's no need for me to explain much else there. And Carey Price, he's a reliable goaltender regardless of how well the Canadians do. And he's going to get you a lot of points, a lot of saves, save percentage, all that good stuff. My next two picks were Morgan Riley and Sean Couturier. I decided to take another offensive defenseman. As you can see, I didn't really take into account categories when I was drafting this team. I was focusing mostly on points. So I took Morgan Riley, and then I took Sean Couturier. I feel like he's going to be the number one center going forward in Philadelphia. They're going to try maybe move Giroux on the wing and play Giroux, Konechny, and Couturier. Maybe a little bit of shuffling here and there, but I feel like that's going to be their number one line going forward. Because as you can see, I decided to take Konechny and Provorov my next two picks. I think Philly's really going to do good in their division this year. They strode a strong end of season playoffs last year. So this year I feel like they have a lot to offer. Provorov is going to be one of their best defensemen week in and week out. And Travis Konechny, like I said, he's going to be on the top line with Giroux and Couturier, in my opinion. Next, we have Matt Barzal and William Nylander. So as you can see, Matt Barzal is my third center on the bench. And maybe you thought earlier too why I took Sean Couturier at 9 so far down. As you can see, center depth, especially on Yahoo, is very deep. There's a lot of players. There's an abundance of centers. So you don't really need to focus too much on drafting, let's say, McDavid and Peterson right off the bat with your first two picks, because then it leaves a lot of holes in your team in the other positions. So I ended up taking Barzal as my third center, which in my opinion is amazing. And then William Nylander, who will reap the benefits based on regardless who he's playing with, Matthews or Tavares, he's going to be on one of the top two lines for Toronto. And both of those two lines are going to be some of the best lines in the NHL. My next two picks are Fleury and Bobrovsky. Fleury's going to be competing with Leonard. Vegas does have a lot of confidence in Leonard going into the season, but Fleury is always a great, reliable goaltender. If anything happens to Leonard, you're getting a stud in Fleury, so there's no issue there. And Bobrovsky, he's the starting goaltender for Florida. He's a $10 million goalie. There should be no debate as to why he's getting paid $10 million. Unfortunately, he had a bad season last year, but they paid him $10 million for a reason. So Bobrovsky, I feel like, deserves another shot this year, and that's why I drafted him. My last pick, I decided to take Thomas Chabot to round out my defensive depth. Having Thomas Chabot on the bench is going to be great depth, especially offensively. As you can see, I didn't really take into account categories because if I did, this team would be horrendous in plus minus. But, when I was drafting, I said it was specifically on points. So that's the mentality I took into it. There are a couple of players in that team that I would maybe change if you were playing categories, but in a points league, this is your best bet. But a 10-man league, we have Connor McDavid first overall once again, no debate. And then I decided to take Mitch Marner and Cale Makar. Mitch Marner, like I said earlier, he's going to be one of the best players on Toronto. And Cale Makar, I took this high because the defenseman had already started going in the second round, and I needed to start bolstering my defensemen before there weren't too many defensemen gone, so like that the disparity based on everybody else in the league would have been too much. My next two picks were Igor Shesterkin and Taylor Hall. Taylor Hall I took because my left wing slot was lacking a little bit, in my opinion. At that point, there was only Taylor Hall and Pacioretty left, and Brady Tkachuk, as you see on the screen. But I mean, in terms of left wingers that I feel like can make a powerful impact, Taylor Hall and Pacioretty were the only two notable players that I saw. So I decided to take Taylor Hall. I figured, listen, he's playing with Jack Eichel. Jack Eichel's one of the best players in the NHL, so that's never a minus. As we saw last year with the likes of Jess Skinner and Victor Olofsson, anybody who plays with Jack Eichel just reaps the benefits. So Taylor Hall should have a career year, in my opinion. And Igor Shesterkin, he's playing for the Rangers. The Rangers this year are going to be another team that are going to be majorly different from last season, in my opinion. They got Lafreniere with the first pick. They have Panarin, they have Zibanejad, they have Kreider, they have some solid defensemen, although maybe none of them are top Norris candidates. They're some of the best defense. It's some of the best defensive depth on a team I've seen. And Igor Shesterkin is going to be crucial in their wins, in my opinion. He's a great goaltender, and I feel like he's going to backstop them to a lot of wins this season. My next two picks are Miro Heiskanen and Brady Tkachuk. Brady Tkachuk I decided to take here because I felt like Mitch Marner and Connor McDavid were good center right wingers, so I needed some more left wing depth in case Taylor Hall doesn't pan out the way I predict he's going to. So I decided to take Brady Tkachuk for all the same reasons I mentioned earlier. And here, Miro Heiskanen, he's going to be a great offensive defenseman we saw last year in the playoffs, and he's only going to get better from here on out. My next two picks were Shea Theodore and Brendan Gallagher. Brendan Gallagher is a reliable 20-goal scorer. He's going to be top line of the Canadiens regardless of how they do this year. He's going to get all kinds of power play. He plays the gritty style of offense that you see, that people love. He's always going to get those garbage goals, so you can rely on him every week to get you 1 or 2 goals. Shea Theodore, he still has a lot of offensive upside even with Pietrangelo coming into the team. He's going to be a stud for Vegas the same way he was last year. I feel like his usage isn't going to go down just because Pietrangelo has come in. So he's still going to be one of the top players for Vegas, in my opinion. Next two picks I decided to take were Pierre-Luc Dubois and Darcy Kemper. Dubois I took to finally round out my centers. As you can see, taking Dubois in the 10th round is a steal. And the center depth is crazy in Yahoo, so there was no really need to worry. And Darcy Kemper to round out my goaltenders, having Kemper and Shesterkin, two reliable goaltenders. Kemper helped Arizona win many games last season, and this year shouldn't be any different. So having those two goalies, as reliable as they are, is going to be great for this team going forward. So that's why I decided not to take any goaltenders on my bench. So I started to here taking Nicholas Backstrom. He can swap with Dubois based on how well they do this season. As you can see, taking Backstrom in the 12th round, he's going to be playing with Ovechkin, Tom Wilson. So it doesn't matter. He's one of the best playmakers in the league. And drafting him in the 12th round, in my opinion, is a steal. My next two picks were my next two picks were Backstrom and Olofsson. So Olofsson, you saw he played really well with Eichel last year, and then he ended up getting hurt. But he was in the running for Calder, and he has a lot to prove even this year on how well he is for that Buffalo offense. My next two picks were Lafreniere and Suzuki. Suzuki is going to be one of the best players for the Montreal Canadiens. At some point, I feel like he's going to step in and take the number one center spot. Most of the offense, I feel like, is going to run through him. He's a special talent. He's a special kid. And this year should be a step up from what he did last year. Alexis Lafreniere, we don't know what he's going to do. We don't know how well he's going to do, but he should come in and light up the league. Playing behind Artemi Panarin might cut into his play time, but he's still going to get you 50, 60 points. So taking Lafreniere in the 14th round, in my opinion, is a steal. And then at 16, we have Rasmus Sandin. This might be a sleeper pick. This might be a pick that is not really wasted, but I could have picked other defensemen. But I really feel like Rasmus Sandin has a lot to prove this year. He might not get top 4 defenseman time, but he's definitely top 4 defenseman caliber. And this guy is going to be very crucial for Toronto Maple Leafs going forward, especially with the lack of defensive depth, we'll say, on their team. Now for the 12-man league, as you can see here, Connor McDavid, number 1 overall, once again, no surprise. My next two picks are Rantanen and Huberdeau. How I managed to get Rantanen this far down, I have no idea. Because keep in mind, this is a 12-man league, right? So taking Rantanen at, 24 or 23, whatever this pick, 24, is astounding in my opinion. I don't know how he fell to me, but I decided to take him anyway. And Jonathan Huberdeau, he's going to be one of those low-key 80, 90-point players. It's not going to feel like he's impacting your team a lot, but week in and week out, he's going to be getting you reliable points. As long as he doesn't get injured, he's going to be one of the best players on your team. Rantanen, I don't really need to say anything about Rantanen. He's playing with McKinnon. You saw how well he plays. Unfortunately, he got hurt last year, but injuries happen. There's nothing, you can't really predict that. And he should be a reliable winger going forward. My next two picks are Taylor Hall and Alex Pietrangelo. Like I said earlier, Taylor Hall should have a career year. And Alex Pietrangelo, like I was mentioning earlier with the Shea Theodore pick, I feel like Pietrangelo has a lot to offer Vegas. He's going to be put in a more offensive role, in my opinion, because of how well Vegas is structured in terms of depth. And he's going to be a great defenseman this year, maybe even one of the top Norris candidates. My next two picks are Seth Jones and Rasmus Dahlin. Jones and Dahlin, Jones is a reliable defenseman. He's going to get you everything that you need. He doesn't excel in a specific category other than maybe time on ice. But other than time on ice, Seth Jones is more of like one of those reliable defensemen that's going to get you a set amount of points week in and week out. And Dahlin has a lot of offensive upside. As long as you don't have categories and plus minus isn't important, Dahlin is an amazing defenseman to pick up. My next two picks, Dubois and Kemper. As you can see, I finally ended up rounding out the center slot here. The right wingers weren't too deep, so I decided, you know what, let me just take Dubois, finish up my centers, and we'll be good to go. And then Darcy Kemper is my first goalie. Like I said earlier, he's going to be reliable. He's going to be very crucial in those wins for Arizona. So he's going to be my starting goaltender in the 12-man league. Here we took Duchesne and Corpusalo. Corpusalo, he's going to be fighting for a spot with Merzlikins. He's going to share a lot of time, especially this season with a lot of back-to-backs. Merzlikins is going to be relied upon more. But Corpusalo, in my opinion, has the confidence of Tortorella and the Columbus Blue Jackets behind him, and he's going to be their starting goaltender, so he should get most of the starts based on the tandem they have over there. And Matt Duchene, I know this isn't one of my favorite picks, but I decided he's a center and a right wing, so he's very flexible, and he's also a player that is has something to prove this year. Maybe he'll if he doesn't end up panning out this year, I feel like his career is finally over, and maybe it was optimistic of me to pick him this high, but I figured, you know what? It's high risk, but it's also high reward. My next two picks, Lafreniere and Suzuki. Like I said earlier, both of these young studs are going to be amazing in the NHL going forward, and I don't see either of them play a bad season this year. My next two picks, Ekholm and Sandin. Sandin, like I said earlier, he has to fight for his way into Toronto, but if he does end up fighting, he's going to be an amazing defenseman for Toronto. And Ekholm, he's a defenseman that, although is playing with on the second D pair, if one of Ellis or Yossi end up getting hurt, Ekholm's going to be thrusted into that top 2 D pair, and he still has stuff to offer Nashville, in my opinion. And he's going to be a great defenseman, assuming one of the top two end up getting injured. And with my last pick here, I decided to take Clayton Keller. Clayton Keller didn't have a stellar season last season, but he is one of the best players on Arizona. A lot of the offense runs through him. And if he decides to pick it up like he did 2 years ago, Clayton Keller at 16th is an absolute steal. So this is it for the who you should draft with the number 1 overall pick in the 2021 fantasy season. I will be doing more videos based on the second, third, etc., up until 12, I think, because 13 and 14th overall, there's not too many people that do 13, 14-man leagues. So I'm going to stick to these 3 for this series of videos. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it. Please like, comment, and subscribe if you like it. And thanks.